Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning. All right, it's 10 a.m., 10:01 on my clock, and we're going to go ahead and get this party started. I am Tiffany D. Thomas, Chair of the Housing Committee, and I call this meeting to order. I would like to welcome virtually all of my City Council colleagues. I do have our Vice Chair, David Robinson, Councilmember Amy Peck, and a host of staff members representing various offices. This meeting will be held via Microsoft Teams due to COVID-19. Before we get started with our agenda, Vice Chair Robinson, do you have any additional opening remarks?
Madam Chair, nothing more than it is a beautiful day in Houston, Texas, and I'm glad to be serving with you on this day.
Wonderful. I share your sentiments. This morning, we're going to hear a presentation from the Houston Community Land Bank and, of course, updates from our housing department. And before we move forward, I want to bump up to my colleagues and the staffers that are listening on the call. Last week, we approved $3 million in support of our home buyer choice. So it's perfect timing that we'll hear from the Houston Community Land Trust. We'll hear from the Public Services Division. They have a series of recommendations authorizing contractual amendments and agreements from public facilities, our multifamily, our single family, and of course, the director's report as we move forward. After the final presentations, we will open the floor for public comments. And today we have 3 public comments. We will hear from Sharon Mayberry, President and CEO of Mayberry Homes. Immediately following Mr. Mayberry will be Mrs. Kendra London of the 5th Ward CBA and Mrs. Molly Cook with Circle Coalition. I'm going to go ahead and get started. At this time, I would like to welcome Ashley Allen, Executive Director of the Houston Community Land Trust, so she can share her presentation. Ms. Allen, are you with us? Cheryl, is she online?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
hi, good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Ashley Allen, has she checked in with you?
No, let me reach out.
Madam Chair, I'm here, Carolyn Evans Shabazz.
Thank you very much. And so if she's too far delayed, I'm going to go ahead and get started with public services. Okay, Director McCaslin.
That sounds great.
Okay, we'll just roll into the first section if there's too much of a delay.
Whenever you're ready to roll over, we'll roll to it.
Sure. Cheryl, is there an ETA when she's going to sign on? Because I want to move forward.
Yes, she's on. She's trying to
On my computer.
no person.
She's trying to do what?
She's on. She's trying to speak currently.
I don't see her on. I don't see her on the call, so I'm going to move forward to public services. All right, Director McCaslin, let's go ahead and move forward, and then Assistant Director Melody Barr, ready for your presentation.
Thank you. Melody, over to you.
All right, good morning. Good morning, committee members and chair. Thank you so much. I'm going to be presenting items 3A through 3D. And so we'll go ahead and start. Item 3A. The department is presenting before this committee a second amendment to the subrecipient agreement in the amount of $875,000 between the City of Houston and Catholic Charities for the administration and operation of a tenant-based rental assistance, short-term rent mortgage utility assistance, and supportive services program that includes permanent housing placement for individuals and families living with or affected by HIV or AIDS. Additional funding will support the program until November 30th, 2021. This project will use HOPWA funds to provide housing assistance and support services to low-income households who are at risk of becoming homeless. And of course, we're going to do this through the short-term mortgage utility assistance up to 85 households, tenant-based rental assistance up to 45 households, and then permanent housing placement up to 20. And just to provide a little bit more information about permanent housing placements, that's specifically to deposits and to first month's rent. And then there's support services that includes case management, life skills, and support groups to all of those individuals, totaling 150 households served. And Catholic Charities has received HOPWA funding through the city for various contracts since 2003. Would you like me to continue or stop for questions? Oh, you're on mute.
After the public services presentation, we'll take questions. You can
All right,
continue.
great. Item 3B, the department is presenting a second amendment to the subrecipient agreement in the amount of $130,000 between the City of Houston and the Coalition for the Homeless of Houston and Harris County. This program is funded with federal CDBG, Community Development Block Grant dollars to provide funding through December 31st, 2021. The agreement provides funding to finance the administration and operation of the Coalition for the Homeless as the lead agency on behalf of the city and county to perform mandated activities as part of the Continuum of Care program. Such activities must be performed to enable local service providers to receive approximately $41 million of federal COC funds to combat homelessness. The activities include the point-in-time enumeration count, which occurs every January. This is the annual count of homeless persons, and this count is facilitated by the coalition and is required of all communities receiving funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, as we know it. The count is reported to HUD and is one of the factors in determining the amount of funding that our community receives in support housing program grants. They also do the annual gap analysis, the Continuum of Care collaborative grant application, performance measures of the COC funded programs and projects, and continued development of our coordinated entry process for our homeless system. The Coalition for the Homeless has received funding through the city for various contracts since at least 1997. And item 3C, the department is presenting a subrecipient agreement in the amount of $266,962 between the City of Houston and Harris County Community Services Department for case management services addressing youth homelessness in Houston. Funded with Homeless Housing Services Program Youth Set-Aside funding, this is from the state of Texas, General Service dollars. They will be providing case management services to 60 youth head of households. These services are paired or leveraged with the Family Unification Program housing vouchers, which is very similar to Housing Choice vouchers, administered by the Houston Housing Authority. This program serves youth, which is defined as persons in the age bracket of 18 to 24 years who have aged out of foster care, suffered loss and trauma, and are extremely vulnerable. The program objectives include preventing homelessness or repeat homelessness by stabilizing clients through case management, self-directing clients towards solutions to create stable housing outcomes, and connecting clients with resources, linkage to support agencies to assist in financial independence. This agreement term is from December 15th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. Okay. Item 3D, the department is presenting a second amendment to the subrecipient agreement in the amount of $196,090.62 between the City of Houston and Houston SRO Housing Corporation for the operation and administration of a community residence, which provides permanent housing along with support services for individuals living with HIV or AIDS. Funded with the HOPWA grant dollars to cover an additional 12-month period, this will be expiring January 31st, 2022. This project will use HOPWA funds to provide housing and support services to a minimum of 34 low-income households living with HIV or AIDS. Support services include comprehensive case management and referrals for general health services, job placement, mental health, and substance abuse counseling. Houston SRO Housing Corporation has received HOPWA funding through the city for various contracts since 1998. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions in the queue? I have a couple of myself, some clarifying points, but I'm gonna defer to my colleagues first. Jarrell, do you have any questions in the queue?
Madam Chair, I've got one.
There's one question from Councilmember Cisneros.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. I was very interested in the public services component that you were just talking about, and you mentioned that this would provide case management services to a minimum of 60 youth-headed households. Can you talk about that, a youth-headed household?
So under the HUD rules, youth is considered an adult between the age of 18 and 24. And so these are either single households where it's just that one person or their parents. And so, so they have to be between the age of 18 and 24.
And they are the head of the household?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
Vice Chair, you have a question that you wanted to share? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a question for Ms. Barr, namely the on item C, the program that is helping those who are aging out of adolescent care that you mentioned, and just wondering if you could again speak about all of our collaborating partners on that program.
So this particular program is 2 parts, right? So they have the Houston Housing Authority, which provides the rental assistance. And when this program actually started, there were no case management dollars allocated towards it. We just felt like if we were able to provide the rental assistance for these individuals, and I do want to clarify, these youth do have children alongside with them, right? So if we could provide the rental assistance and we could provide stable housing, what we found out in that first year is that that wasn't accurate. They needed a case management component to continue to stabilize. And so we came in with these HHSP dollars, and it was pretty serendipitous because the state called us and let us know that they had this new funding available. And so we were excited to be able to pair with it. And so that's sort of how this program grew. But we understood that we definitely needed case management. And a lot of that is life skills. A lot of it's just skills that typically, you know, unfortunately, because of circumstances, weren't organically taught. And so now this program is doing that.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Is our health department actively providing any dollars as well?
And I don't believe to this project it's not. It's just the Houston Housing Authority and the county.
Okay. Director, I may want to speak with you a little bit about that. I know Director Williams is working on some things that I'm aware of that we may be able to find some additional support for.
Great.
That sounds great.
So I do have two questions. If we can go back to 3B and 3C. Specifically, I'm interested in, and I know this has come up in previous conversations within the committee, when it lists all districts, I'm really interested in the impact and the investment in all districts. And so, for instance, when it's saying strategic planning activities, when we did the count for the census, and I'm just speaking for District F was not a part of that, right? So, and we spend a lot of our Midwest police and West Side, the DRT and the homeless outreach team, they spend a large amount of time interfacing with those experiencing homelessness and our young people. And so when we are proposing these types of recommendations, particularly with planning dollars, I would really like to see the investment in all districts and in a follow-up to once that the agreement is passed, because my concern is that, at least on my end, and I can speak for myself, in the district, we don't have a strong social services apparatus in the West Side. And so it's really challenging to get these individuals experiencing homelessness and those who might be presenting a certain way into a system when a lot of that work is done on, you know, within the city, within 610 Loop, and nothing's done outside of Beltway 8. And so if you can as a future follow-up, I would really like to see more information around all districts to make sure that we are being really strategic and thoughtful about the entire city. That's one. And then
Can I comment on that real quick?
Sure.
So just real quick on that. So when we talk about this $130,000 in terms of planning, a big portion of this is related to the point in time count. And I am happy to provide you with last year's point in time count, which does encompass all of Houston and all of Harris County. So this is just a portion of that, but I completely understand your comment. And so I will provide you the information that I have and take note of that.
Sure, and for all, and we'll send it out to all council, but I think if we can just be in practice of including that information when it says all districts, because there, even if we make the connection to the additional $4 million the mayor issued to HPD for overtime, right? And I know a lot of that on my end is DRT related, those experiencing homelessness, those under, getting them a place. We just want to make the connection, at least for me, to make sure that we're efficient in our work. And I believe that we are. It's just helpful for us to communicate how all these pieces fit. So thank you for that. And then the 3C is similar. Anything that says all districts, it would just be helpful in practice to share with council members where this investment is happening so we can communicate and then encourage our constituents, if they see something or if they can enroll or register or participate, that will be really helpful. And that's all for me for public services. Do we have any additional questions before we move on? We do have Ashley Allen in the queue, so we can return to the Houston Land Trust presentation. Assistant Director Barr, are we clear? Are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. So if we can move back to the first presentation. Ms. Allen, are you with us?
I believe so. I think I'm called in. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Fantastic. Is somebody going to share my slides since I can't get on?
You can see the screen. We're ready to go. So.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. For some reason I can't see it. So.
Yes, Ms. Allen. If you just.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Oh, I see it now. I see it moving. Thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you all today. Again, my name is Ashley Allen. I'm the Executive Director of the Houston Community Land Trust. Next slide, please. We are a independent 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2018. I know most of you may have heard of the Land Trust, but I know often we get confused with the Land Bank and sometimes just kind of looped in with the city of Houston. And while they're, as you will hear, they are some of our strongest partners, but we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit. And our mission, next slide, please. Right here. And our mission is to make a quality, affordable homeownership achievable to limited income households in Houston. And so when we think about what that means, we are talking truly affordable. A lot of affordable housing programs are workforce housing, which is extremely important, and we definitely need it. However, based on our applicants and who we work with every day, there is still a gap when it comes to home ownership that people under 80% of the area median income can actually afford. So as you can see, the housing problem here, I know it's no secret that housing in Houston has become more expensive over time in most neighborhoods around the city. And just looking at the numbers over the past 10 years, we're talking about a 67% increase in home prices, while incomes have only increased by 20%. So that's making home ownership even more difficult for people who are going to work every single day, who are working full time, sometimes multiple jobs. Home ownership is still just out of their reach. So that's what we're here to do, is to help make home ownership and affordable housing something that is accessible for more people. Again, our focus in particular is about between 50% of the area median income up to 80% of the area median income. Next slide, please. Oh. Next slide, please. I don't know if you all can, it's not changing on my end. Can you all see the next slide?
Ashley, I think there's a delay. Do you want to
Delay.
apply to the new home development
Oh, not a
program?
problem. Okay, no problem. I'll just go ahead and, so our programming, right now we have the new home development program, which we partner with the City of Houston and the Houston Land Bank. And how that works, the Houston Community Land Trust does not acquire actual land and develop that land. Our role in this, in the new home development program and how we operate currently is the City of Houston is in charge of building the properties and getting the builders, doing the the RFQs for builders and to build on Houston Land Bank lots. And so we are in charge, the Houston Community Land Trust, of finding qualified buyers to go and purchase those homes. And what that means is we're going out into the community, explaining what the land trust is all about. We're going and getting home buyers, home buyer ready, connecting them to resources and walking them through the process all the way through the closing table, to the closing table. And after they purchase, we support them to make sure that they are successful homeowners. As many of you know, that homeownership just doesn't stop when you sign your name on the mortgage and the deed. There are things that that go into being a successful homeowner. That includes budgeting, that includes home maintenance. And if you're a first-time home buyer, like most of our home buyers are, you don't know those things. And so we work with our home buyers to ensure that they are successful in home ownership and also serve as stewards of the public investment. So we're ensuring that those homes that were meant for long-term affordability remain affordable from now and into the future. Our homeowners sign a 99-year ground lease, meaning that that home will have somebody in it. They will have exclusive rights to that home for 99 years, meaning multiple generations of their family. That also means that if they decide to move out of that home, the land trust will ensure that somebody else under 80% of the area median income will be in that home. So again, protecting that, that public investment for the long term. Since 2018, 38 homes have been completed through the new home development program. Of that 38, 29 have been sold through the Houston Community Land Trust. The other homes have been sold at market rate. So as you can see, there is a demand and a need for the land trust model because people are choosing it overwhelmingly over buying market rate. There are currently 18 under construction, which will hopefully be available for sale in January of 2021. The good news is that all the homes are sold. The bad news is that all the homes have been sold. So we are excited to see that new home development has been successful and appreciate the partnership with the City of Houston and the Land Bank to make that happen. But with new home development, the homes are limited to a certain area because that's where land is available by the Land Bank to build. So all those homes are in the Acres Homes community, which has been a great community to be in. It's very close-knit. They've been very receptive to the program. However, we understand that the need for affordable homes for purchase is citywide. And that's where we have the Home Buyer Choice Program, which we launched this month. Thanks to City Council's vote last week, we were able to get funding for the Home Buyer Choice Program. And this program will allow home buyers, again, under 80% of the area median income to purchase a home anywhere within Houston city limits. It must meet environmental and quality standards. We want to make sure that people are getting in homes, one, that are not in areas that are known to be environmentally hazardous. There's been a trend nationally. There's a trend nationally to put affordable homes in areas that are not environmentally sound, and we don't want that. We want to make sure that people are getting quality homes and quality environments. And then we're also talking about quality standards because affordability also means maintenance, getting in the home and staying in the home. So we're looking for homes in this program. The homeowner must look for a home that does not need major maintenance within the first 5 years of home ownership. This will allow them to be able to live comfortably, save up money, and also through the land trust, you're putting away $50 a month in a maintenance fee. So that way, if there are any major issues that need to be addressed in the home, later you have some money to pull from to address those needs. So we are looking at affordability not just in the purchase price, but also in the maintenance price of that property. The home buyers through the Home Buyer Choice Program are eligible for $100,000 to reduce the purchase price and to cover closing costs. If the home in which they choose is a zone for an A and B rated school, they'll receive up to $150,000 to purchase that home and make it affordable. So when we talk about this $100,000, $150,000 investment, it's not just for this one family. That investment means that that home will be affordable from now and again until the future. We are currently working with community-based organizations through this program, like Avenue CDC, Fifth Ward CRC, Habitat for Humanity, and Agape Redevelopment in the OST South Union area to connect buyers to affordable price inventory. Those are the community-based organizations that we're looking for that we know are building homes in that are at an affordable price. That way, we know that it's hard to find a home in a certain price point that even with $100,000 and $150,000 would be right for our affordable for our home buyers. So we know these organizations are doing that. So that's how we started off kind of working with them, but we're also reaching out to community-based builders who we know are building affordable properties as well, our for-profit builders that are building affordable homes. So we kind of have a two-prong approach in making sure that there's inventory for this program on the market. And again, these community-based organizations have been working closely with us to identify the properties that they are building, but then also we're reaching out to for-profit builders who are building in a particular price point that would allow people to utilize the home buyer choice subsidy. Okay. My next slide. So just kind of where has the Houston Community Land Trust gone since we were launched in 2018? So in 2018, we were formed. Since then, we have 29 HCLT homeowners. We have 7 on the wait list, 10 on hold in the pipeline that are waiting to start the process as soon as we have some more homes available. We have had we had 482 applicants apply since February of 2019, which is when our application opened to the public. 104 applicants have been referred to counseling. What we do not do is turn people away. If you come to us and you're not home buyer ready, what we try to do is refer you to some counseling services to get you home buyer ready. We believe that if you've done the work and you are serious about home ownership, you will continue to do the work until you're in a home. And we've seen people go and apply, who applied back in 2019, come back in 2020 and ready to purchase a home. And so we're working with organizations like Family Houston, Covenant Community Capital, Avenue CDC, to ensure that people have the resources they need for home ownership, to be home buyer ready. Our average AMI is 67%, which we think is very good because most affordable home programs still have trouble reaching lower AMIs, and our AMI range is 46 to 80%. So if people have limited debt, we usually can go to a lower AMI, and so we're really focused on that 50 to 80% AMI, but we hope that through Home Buyer Choice program, we may even be able to continue to reach a little bit below 50% of the area median income. And our median purchase price, when we talk about affordable, we really mean affordable. $75,115 is the median CLT purchase price. And then that results to an average mortgage of about $675. So when we talk about, again, affordability and what that truly means, this is what we're talking about when we say affordable, because now we have our workforce housing that usually goes up to about 120% of area median income, but now we're also reaching people at, again, that 50%, comfortably at that 50%, and they're not cost burdened by housing. We have had some challenges along the way. I would definitely deem us as successful. Nationally, we are gaining a reputation because of our public partnership with the City of Houston and with our land bank. And we are still working through some challenges, but no doubt we are definitely setting the standard nationally. But some of our challenges include a lack of new home development inventory. This is a good and bad problem. There are currently no houses available, and we have people who've been on the wait list for over 3 months. Again, we sold them fairly quickly, and so now we just need more inventory and new home development. Funding for the Home Buyer Choice Program, we so graciously were awarded $3 million in a city council vote. It says the 18th, but that was actually the 11th. The 10th that we were awarded the money. Our current pipeline of applicants will use most of those funds probably within 6 months. We have a backlog of people who are ready and excited to go, and will be homeowners probably the first quarter of 2021. There's a lack of community builders that build for the communities we serve. We would really like to see more community-based builders in the communities. We just feel that if you are part of the community, you will build with a certain level of pride and respect for the community. You will build to community standards, the community aesthetic. So I think that's just one thing I would really like to work with the city on, and making sure that community builders are aware of programs like new home development, aware of home buyer choice, so that we can start partnering with them and they can bring that community aspect to these programs. And then one thing for the land trust in particular is a lack of local appraisers that can facilitate leasehold appraisals. Right now, the market is really high, and appraisers are not really focused on trying to learn a new skill, and a lot of them do not know how to do leasehold appraisals, which is what we need to facilitate our transactions. There's actually only one appraiser that can do leasehold appraisals in the entire city of Houston. So we're working on partnering with some organizations locally and nationally to try to figure out ways to incentivize appraisers to get in and learn how to do leasehold appraisals. And lastly, our future actions. So even though we have some challenges, we are working very closely with the housing department and their staff to really move these programs forward, working closely with HCDD to understand building timelines and guidelines. We need to, so that way we can better estimate and manage our pipeline of buyers, working on acquiring outside funding to obtain more subsidy funds. So the city is, again, really stepping up and providing funding to make home ownership affordable for many people. But as an organization, as an independent nonprofit, we are working on acquiring outside funding so that we can continue to subsidize these homes and provide opportunity. We're building relationships with community builders to connect them to our program. Again, we want to work with the city on this, and as well as our team going out and doing the footwork and meeting with community-based builders to get the word out, especially if they are building at an affordable price point already in communities around the city. We want to work with the city of Houston on policies that will improve building and processes and quality. So we've had several conversations. I've had conversations with Tom and Anderson and single family, and we are definitely trying, our team is learning more about what the process looks like for hiring contractors, what the quality standards are, so that then we can provide some input and help develop some policies around what the housing should look like based on what we're hearing from the community and our experience in selling it. So we'll continue to work with them. And then lastly, continue to work with community organizations and public entities to address housing issues. So some of the issues that have come to the Houston Community Land Trust is the displacement due to I-45 expansion. What are we going to do with the families that are going to be displaced that may not be able to find something affordable after they have to move? So working with TxDOT, working with other council members and trying to address that issue. Working with people and organizations that want to make sure, again, that people are not living in environmental hazards, especially when it comes to affordable housing. And then how can the land trust be a tool to help those who are tax delinquent on their property and cannot afford the increase in property taxes and hold on to their properties as the property taxes increase, particularly in communities of color, which is what the trend is right now that we're seeing. So this is how we'll be using the CLT in the future and continuing to work with our partners at HCDD as well as community-based organizations. And lastly, if you all can see, we have some pictures of some of the homes that the city and the land bank and the CLT have helped to sell and make homeownership possible for residents across in the Acres Home community. So we're really proud of the homes and the partnership that we've built. And I'll be open for any questions you may have about our program. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I know I have several questions. We do have some in the queue for, from my colleagues, but I want to acknowledge other council members that have joined us. Council member Carolyn Evans-Shabazz. There's a feedback. feedback. Councilmember Carolyn Evans Shabazz from District D, the District of Destination. Councilmember Carlos Cisneros, the District H. And Jordan McGinty on behalf of Councilmember Sally Alcorn and Vice Mayor Pro Tem Martha Castex Tatum has joined us for the call as well. Vice Chair Robinson, I think you're up next in the queue. There was a question you had.
Yeah, I did have a question. I think I might be the source of the feedback. We've got big construction going on outside City Hall here today, as you know. Madam Chair, I wanted to address the speaker and first of all, thank you, Ms. Allen, for your comments and your presentation today. I love the final slide here because you really can see that these are good looking homes, well designed, and you know, something anyone would be proud to live in, I think, frankly. And that it falls to the final point you made, really, about the quality of the product and some of what I know Director McCasland and others that you mentioned with that earlier slide of all the excellent partners that you've been working with. So I want to say congratulations to the good news and the bad news that you discussed, namely that you're in high demand and you're looking to increase the supply. So, you know, may you live in fortunate times in that regard, because we do have a very high need for providing affordable housing. And I'm saying that not only as your council member and someone who I hope you will look to team up, because we're in the midst of a number of projects. And as your architect on council, I want to point out that Director McCasland and our chair of this committee, we've been eager to embrace the highest level of design that we can with the architecture, as well as be a part of a conversation considering the quantity of homes that we really need to address the demand that's there. So at the risk of sounding a little self-serving, I know the local community of architects have been working together with the city towards the need of affordable housing, and there have been some excellent design solutions and ideas put forward that I know were subject of part of the discussion that we had last week with a conversation with the Rice Design Alliance in the annual civic forum that they had. Director McCasland was a part of a moderated panel, as well as some of the folks, again, partners that you have with the Avenue CDC. The executive director, Mary Lawler, was on that group discussion, as well as our friend, Dr. Asada Richards, from the 5th and particularly the 3rd Ward CDCRC. So these are all groups that were emphasizing the importance of the community land trust. And I know you know that, so I'm not trying to tell you something you don't know, but we are wanting to cooperate with you in your challenge to elevate the level of the design and work with some of our capable builders that we have out there who can deliver the product. And I guess maybe open it up with a question to you. If we're trying to live into what Chairman Thomas has requested about citywide, all districts in the previous discussion, how would you recommend that we embrace this challenge across the entire city and landscape of Houston?
I'm sorry, it was kind of coming out of it, but I want to just make sure I understand your question. You're asking how we can make sure that the program is seen throughout the entire city of Houston?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking you, how can you scale up? How can we help you address the challenge of scale? Because we'd like to see it broadly and widely, absolutely. And how can we help?
Well, the first thing is having enough subsidy funds to continue the program. Currently, the $3 million is a pilot, and so we would like to see it expand because we know that the demand is there. So, of course, the first part is additional funds for subsidy to make the homes affordable. Secondly is really connecting us to builders that we know are building quality, affordable products, because one of the challenges is once we have people through the program and we have money, there has to be inventory that meets the needs of the applicants. So we need homes that are probably under the 230-ish mark to really make it affordable. So for instance, we have a homeowner who is qualified for $90,000. So on top of that subsidy, she picked she's looking at homes in an area where there's a B-rated school. So she can get the 150. But then we have to think about closing costs and all of that to make it truly affordable. So we need properties that people are building properties under that kind of 230 price point, and ensuring that we have enough of those properties to make this program work. So if we have the subsidy, but everybody's building at 275, 280, even 260, this still usually does not work for most of our buyers. So the first thing is subsidy funds. The second thing is working with builders and incentivizing them to build quality products that are under the $230,000 price point will kind of be the two things. And then just we're getting out, well, as soon as we can get back out, but we were doing what we call community information sessions. So we're going out into the community and talking about the land trust, explaining the model to people, getting them, referring them to services to get them home buyer ready. So we're really using a grassroots approach to get the word out about the program in particular communities. So also connecting community-based organizations that have potential home buyers, people who are looking for an affordable housing option, connecting us to those organizations so we can do presentations for their constituents. So that's kind of the top three I think would be the most helpful. We've connected with a lot of the organizations, kind of like as you mentioned, but we know that there are more out there that we don't know about, and smaller community organizations that are really on the ground that we need to connect to get the word out.
I appreciate your answer, and I know that really addresses a lot of the discussion that I've been having with Director McCasland. And without taking further time for that, Chair, I think the utilization of the land might be the next thing that I want to bring up and discuss at a broader point of discussion. The accessory dwelling units, the smaller units that have been talked about, may be another point. But Ms. Allen, again, thank you. That price point that you talked about, that's up into the 200s, is frankly a little higher even than what I think the city has targeted, where the range that I've heard from the director, and if he cares to comment, he could, but I've heard 145 to 185 upwards, but not to exceed 200,000 is kind of the sweet spot or the target for the city. But I love that, there's a broader range that we can consider. Thanks again.
Thank you much. And we do have Councilmember Cisneros, you're next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Ms. Allen. I wanted to ask you more about the Home Buyer Choice Program. It was mentioned in here, that the home would need to be on the market within the city limits and meets environmental and quality standards. So my question is that I would like to be provided, I would like to know specifically what are those standards? So are they just outside standards, like air quality? Are things like lead-based paint part of that? Inside the home, it's still an environmental hazard, in so many of our homes across the city. But then, but the whole thing about air quality is, I have highways running through much of District H, and so we know that the particulate matter around highways is higher, and it affects air quality. And so we have some, the other thing about the schools, A or B and rated schools, we may have a situation where we've got a highly rated school, but it's in a place where there's, the particulate matter is too high and it wouldn't qualify. I would like to know, have a better understanding of what part of our city actually qualifies for this. Is there already a map? Have you plotted out, areas that are eligible? And I would like to know where in District H would qualify. If you could help me with that info to help determine. But I think starting with specifically what metrics are you using to determine what is eligible, for the environmental measures you're using.
Yes, so just basic HUD standards for environmental. We're not looking particularly at, because I get what you're saying to say, okay, well, air quality is not the best because of highways, but we're more so looking at if we know that there's a plant that is known to cause, speculating that it causes cancer or high rates of cancer in a particular area, or right by a manufacturing plant that, may cause, issues with respiratory issues and things like that. Not necessarily saying that being in a major city, there's going to be some standards that we're going to have issues that maybe other places, even the suburbs, may not have. So we understand that. So I don't think it would be an issue of, it would have to be a major environmental hazard, identified public hazard, for us not to move forward with the home. And yes, there is a lead-based paint. We wouldn't accept a home yet if it has like lead-based paint, because we are looking at homes that do not need need major improvement in the first 5 years. And if it has lead-based paint, it would need that's a major improvement, because it would probably not pass inspection. So it has to pass HQS, which the city does that inspection, and a TREC inspection. So we're basically just looking to make sure that there are no major hazards that would kind of immediately impact that home. So it's not, and making sure that there's no like major noise. We're not talking about a highway. I live right by 288, so I can hear it. We're not talking about stuff like that, but things that would definitely reduce quality of life. So no, we have not done any official mapping or planning. It is definitely based off of these inspections. If I can see a plant and smog coming from that house, we probably would not accept that property into the land trust. But the standards are not so rigid that it would eliminate houses just based off the fact that we're in an urban environment, if that helps.
Well, it does make it kind of fuzzy, because we know that there's a big health impact, and then we see, elevated cases of asthma and cardiac arrest, and where we have these issues of being close to highways. So so I think it would be helpful, to try to quantify it as much as possible, so that there's something legitimate to stand on. If that's what said is the measure, then then I think it needs to to be clear, because I don't want to have my neighborhoods ruled out because of where they are. And so I think it would be a useful exercise to to look, if the looking around this, the A or B rated schools, and to plot it on a map and see where those are, what those zones are, and then to identify what other environmental concerns that you do have, that you are measuring, to overlay that. And I think that would help. Otherwise we may just be kind of spinning around, and giving false hope to people who maybe won't qualify.
And Councilmember Cisneros, if I may offer this, and Director McCaslin might be able to speak to that, but we're going to hear from Ray Miller, who's going to share some of our multifamily priorities. He's met with majority of council office, and I say that to say the metrics and the framework in which we identify our 9% tax credits, which could be possibly extended to these type of properties. And so within that, the A or B rated schools and the TERS, a complete community, all of those deals, the environmental piece, which came up in our first round, and I believe in February, particularly in your district, that's not explicitly within the framework. So I think that might be a consideration of some checklists. And I know that the housing department, they do their own internal environmental study, and once they send that up, and then the state does that as well. But I think that might be something possibly to extend to single family developments. And if I could mimic my colleague Robert Gallegos, I would say in District I, we need these properties now, because I know he's a huge fan of this program. And I wish he was here. And I think similarly to your question, he would be interested in how you move forward in terms of expanding your footprint. And I think all of us are essentially asking the same thing. If there are no other questions for Ms. Allen, I do have 2 closing questions. And then we'll move on to the rest of our presentation. I don't see any in the queue. Councilmember Cisneros, do you have any additional questions?
No, that was it. Thank you. Oh, just one other thing, just that I think it's important to, to be looking at the quality of the schools. And I'm glad that's there, but just where that intersects, if you've got a good school that's in an area that has bad air, I want some clarity there. Thank you.
Sure, I think what you're asking for is very reasonable. So thank you so much, Ms. Allen, for joining us. This is it's long overdue, but perfect timing. So there were a couple of things that came up for me during your presentation. One, you spoke of community-based builders. And then secondly, you talked about the affordability. So for me, definitions is really important because when we say affordability, different numbers come to mind, right? So when you say moving forward and having deeper affordability, is it explicitly remaining within the 80% and below AMI? And in addition to that, can you define community-based builders? And because, in the conversations we've had, the question that comes up for me is there a portal for that, right? I'm sure a lot of affordable builders believe that they're community-based. So if you could put some language around that to give us context, because I think as we continue to move forward in this partnership, there's some things that we can help initiate and work in step to identify these community-based builders to provide you a better product.
Yes. So for our program, our charter says that we are to serve people under 80% of the area median income. So that is when we say affordable, homes that are affordable to people under 80% of the area median income. However, we want to definitely start paying attention to those incomes that are below 50%. We think we've done a pretty solid job of that between 65, definitely the 70 to 80%. I think we've got them solid. But just really working and trying to work with our partners to get people who are between that, kind of 30, 40, 50% AMI. That may mean we were thinking about different options of like micro homes that are about 600 square feet, thinking about moving in the future to multifamily, just ways that we can start to utilize the HCLT as a means to address that AMI that normally gets overlooked when it comes to affordability. And they're still going to work every day. They have full-time jobs, but there's just no way they can continue to really pay rent in a market like this. So stabilizing their housing through homeownership, a homeownership model or a CLT rental would be the option for that. So 80% of AMI is what the CLT is focused on, but we do want to be mindful about those who are under 50%. And then community-based builders are, and this is just my interpretation. This is something that we need to talk about kind of on a larger scale. But those who are already building in communities, who know the community, who are actually part of the community, who've been around before an RFQ was put out to build in the community. Those are the builders that we're looking at. People, when I talked to them, they were like, oh, so-and-so has been building in Acres Homes for the past 15 years and they produce a good quality product. Everybody knows them. We have a builder that's been building in Settegast for, the last 10 years. And they know the community, they know the aesthetic, and they know what people are looking for on the market in that community. So that's what I'm talking about with community-based builders, and allowing people to be able to identify the area in which they specialize in or have been building in for a long period of time and have a connection to that area. So that's what we mean by community-based builders, and nothing against those who are coming from out of state or out of town or even going across town to take advantage of opportunities to build. But I do think we should support and highlight those who have committed to those communities before an opportunity presented itself.
Sure. And Director McCaslin, is there any type of portal that we have in place that identifies a builder as such? Is that such a thing or that type of information that we even capture?
So right now, what we have are the procured builders for the new home development side of things. A large part of our goal with the home buyer choice was really to open this up. And you've heard me say this before, put true choice in the hands of the person most affected, the home buyer. And so they're able to go and see, is this the area I want to live in? Is this the style of home I want to buy? And then our money attaches to that home buyer when they make the choice to buy. And so it's not a government official here or at the state or even at the federal level that's driving those decisions. It really is that home buyer who within parameters, they can't go out and buy a home that's falling down, but within parameter, they're saying this is the right choice for my family.
Sure. So we don't necessarily capture builders or define builders in a certain type of way. It's just those who are.
Not currently, and while the rules for the local funds are different, the majority of our funds are federal dollars. Right. And I completely agree with the importance of what Ms. Allen just said. But when we spend federal dollars, we are legally prohibited from distinguishing between builders that are cross state lines and builders that are in Texas or builders in Houston. So we do have to treat them all equally when it comes to procurement with federal dollars.
Sure, absolutely. And Ms. Allen, last question. So how long does it take to build a home? Or how long does it start to finish once you're under contract and it's time to open the doors and hand the keys over? How long is that taking?
Are you asking, I'm sorry, you're asking on my end?
Yes.
I'm not really, because we're not part of the building process. So I know it varies from builder to builder. I think Tom probably has a better gauge of that timeline, but it ranges from builder to builder. Some builders are fairly quick and it may take 4 or 5 months, and then some are a little slower. They have delays. And so like, for instance, these houses that we have right now that we're kind of waiting on, 6 of them we've been waiting probably over 6 months. So it depends on the builder. Some of them, again, get in, get out, and then some of them are a little slower.
And here's the reason I asked this, and of course, Director McCaslin can speak to this, and Vice Chair Robinson as he chairs the TTI committee. But I had a conversation with a couple of builders last week that are affordable builders, and a part of their challenge is the information is changing, which pushes their timeline. So their intention might be 6 months, but because on our end, there's some systems that are unclear or they change or misinformation, it delays the product. So for me, full circle is we might need to have a broader conversation with TTI, and then TTI might need to make some, and that's totally his committee, but there's a connection there and making sure that our builders have all the systems in place in order for them to put the models and the homes in the neighborhoods at an appropriate time, so we don't have an extended period wait list. You see what I'm saying? And so as we connect the dots to continue to invest in this product, home buyer choice, and provide that, we also need to have systems that match the funding, right? So that we're not delayed, because I know single family development is a true priority of the city. So that's probably more of a comment. And so Vice Chair, if as a possibility, if TTI can possibly raise this on an agenda.
It is very much possible, and part of the reason I think by design we have you chairing this committee and me chairing that committee. So with Director McCaslin's support, I know we can make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. We still have a whole robust agenda, y'all. Party time. So if there are no other questions from Ms. Allen, we'll conclude her presentation. I know she has a hard stop and a presentation at 11:30, I believe. So I want to thank you for your time and thank you, colleagues, for your questions. And we will make sure that any additional follow-up Ms. Allen will send your way so you can provide responses to the committee.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, resuming our report from our housing department. We've concluded public service. And so next up is public facilities with Ms. Anna Martinez.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good. And I actually will be presenting item 4A as well as item 5A for multifamily. So I will go ahead and get started if that's okay. HCDD is recommending approval of a $4 million CDBG entitlement grant fund between the City of Houston and Houston Business Development, Inc. for the Bethune Empowerment Center, which will operate as a business hub for small businesses in the area. The proposed grant will fund improvements to the approximately 29,000 square feet of the proposed site located at 2500 Victory Drive in Council District B, which is located in the Acres Homes Complete Community. HCD, along with the Complete Communities Office, has negotiated a lease agreement with Aldine ISD, who currently owns the site, as well as operating and management agreement between the city and HBDI, who will manage the improvements and operate the site once improvements are complete. HBDI is a certified community development financial institution and designated as a CBDO under HUD's regulations, and has served the City of Houston for 30 years in providing small businesses with access to affordable loans, technical assistance, and business counseling services. The grant will fund the first phase of improvements to the site and will include interior demolition, roof replacement, interior finishes, and mechanical replacement of HVAC and other systems. The site will include 9,000 square feet of business incubator and co-work space. 5,000 square feet will be leased to Lone Star College for the creation of an economic development hub. 7,600 square feet will be a performing arts space and event space, and 7,600 will be used for a commercial kitchen. The total development cost for this project is $4.1 million. And that concludes my presentation on Bethune Empowerment Center.
There are no questions in the queue.
I will go ahead and shift over then to item 5A, Connect South. This is a multifamily transaction. So this transaction is actually one of the 16 selected in the Harvey Disaster Recovery Round 2 NOFA. Approximately $170 million in DR17 funds are being committed through this round, which will bring about 1,900 affordable housing units to the city. HCDD is recommending approval of $9 million in CDBG DR17 funds for a contract between the City of Houston and My Connect Community for the construction of a 77-unit affordable housing development to be located at 6440 Hillcroft Street. This is in District J. The site is located in the Gulfton Complete Community. Development will serve low to moderate income households between 30 to 80% AMI for an affordability period of 40 years, and will be the first phase of a 3.2-acre mixed income development. The 4-story podium style development will be located within walking distance of high quality healthcare, library, grocery store, community centers, houses of worship, and public transit. Additionally, the development will include approximately 7,000 square feet of retail space. The total development cost for this project is $28 million. The proposed loan will be non-amortizing throughout the construction and affordability period. Following project completion, the outstanding principal of the note shall accrue an interest at 1%. Borrower will pay annual installments of interest from available cash flow. This project will be a joint venture between the city, My Connect, and Brinshore Development LLC. And that concludes my presentation.
No questions in the queue. Wow. And just as a reminder to my colleagues, what she just presented in terms of multifamily was a part of the 9% tax credit deals that we voted to approve to this, recommend to the state earlier this year.
Yep. All right.
All right, thank you very much. That was
Thank you.
quick. Single families next.
And Mr. Anderson Stout will be making this presentation.
Great.
Anderson, are you there?
Anderson.
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't see him. What happened? Where'd he go? Anderson?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right.
Okay.
I guess I've been speaking to myself. All right, thanks, Director McCaslin, and good morning, Madam Chair. I'll be presenting items 6A through D, and I'll go ahead and get started. So the first item on single-family agendas is an ordinance authorizing the Houston Land Bank to finance 2 acquisitions of land for HCDD's new home development program as follows. The first one is 3201 Hattie Street, and the second one is 1406 Hay Street, consisting of 6.8 acres of land in the near Northside Complete community. As shown in Exhibit A, we'll see it at the bottom of the page in a minute, for a total cost of $9.5 million. And the second property is 7811 Harrisburg Boulevard, which consists of 1.8 acres of land in the Magnolia Complete community neighborhood, as shown also in the exhibit below, for a total amount of $1.9 million. HLB will be utilizing previously appropriated tax increment reinvestment zone affordable housing funds for up to 50% of property acquisitions, and will incur up to 70% debt from either a nonprofit partner or secure owner financing for a maximum loan term of 5 years with an interest rate ranging from 5 to 6%. HCDD will secure the developer and initiate development of an encumbering the sites, and the loan would be taken out by the developer at the time of construction financing. The development plan for the 3201 Hattie Yards, which is a 6.8 acre site, is a construction of approximately 100 to 160 units, townhome and multiplex garden condominium units for acquisition 1. That's your 3201 Hattie. And then for your 7811 Harrisburg, we're looking at approximately 35 to 50 units for acquisition. On the Hattie's property as well, I just want to flag, while our preliminary discussion puts us at right around 120 to 160 properties, we are really looking closer at the site and considering, can we get additional density, and there is a high probability that we can probably push those up to 160 to 190 units. So again, we're looking at multiple avenues and options for that acquisition. So essentially the first, and we can drop to the visual so you all can see. So this is the Hattie's site, which is located in near Northside Complete communities, and actually three track of land. That's 2, 3, and 4. And just for context, the number 2 actually is 2.5 acres. Number 3 is 3.21 acres. That's a central track. And the additional track is 1.09 acres. That gets us to that 6.8 acres. So that completes my presentation for this first component. And the request is really to allow Houston Land Bank to incur debt financing. They have limited of funds that comes from our TIRS affordable funding in order for them to acquire property. And the goal is to be able to stretch those funds by allowing us to invest less but gain more. So by doing a percentage of investment and allowing them to incur debt, then we can acquire more properties. As of now, of the $10 million allocated to them, we have about $6.4 million left after we've considered the acquisition that has already been made. And so the intent is, as we have more properties that's coming online, how much more can we acquire with the funds that we currently have available? Do you want me to just move through all my items and then we'll take questions after?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then the next item is an ordinance for an administration and operations grant agreement between the City of Houston and the Houston Land Bank, providing $2.7 million of previously appropriated to affordable housing funds to the Houston Land Bank for an increase in the existing land assembly and development grant for the acquisition of properties associated with the complete communities. Disaster recovery neighborhoods determined to be high priority areas for affordable home developments. And to further support the mayor's priorities of increased single-family home development and complete communities, HLB has expanded scope beyond the acquisition of tax delinquent properties to include strategic acquisitions within transit-oriented development and other priority areas for new single-family development. Due to increased demand in real estate development and limited number of tax delinquent land parcels, additional funding is needed to support the development of affordable housing. HCDD recommends providing funding to HLB to enable the new home development to continue developing affordable housing. And so this second item is to approve a budget allocation to allow HLB to continue operations, to acquire properties, and to market and sell the homes that the Houston Housing and Community Development Department develops. And so the request is to gain approval in order to provide funding. And this ties into the previous request where the intent is to allow them funds so that they can continue to do acquisition of properties so that we can continue to build homes. Then we can drop to the, and that's the high level budget. You can see where it shows on the right, subtotal administrative cost. You can see that total amount of 2.7. And then you can see that breakdown: employee cost, professional services, legal fees, lot maintenance, miscellaneous. And that gives you an idea of the items that we are actually funding through that allocation of $2.7 million. Next item. The first two items, just for clarity, is related to the new home development program that is in partnership with Houston Land Bank and Houston Community Land Trust. The other items I'll be presenting is related to a home repair program, and that's predominantly where we provide home repairs or reconstruction for individuals who've had long-term deferred maintenance but doesn't have the ability to do those themselves. The first item is an ordinance appropriating $1.2 million in tax increment reinvestment zone affordable housing funds to the HCDD Home Repair Master Contractor Agreement to facilitate emergency repair assistance. The two affordable housing funds were previously budgeted pursuant to Ordinance Number 2017-518 for the Minor Critical Emergency Repair Program and related documents for a contract between the City of Houston and Rebuilding Together. HCDD is requesting the de-appropriation of $1.2 million from the Minor Critical Emergency Repair Program and related documents for a total appropriation of TWS affordable housing funds in the amount of $1.2 million. So essentially in this request, we had $1.2 million from a previous contract that's expired. And the intent is to reappropriate the funds to our existing master contractor agreement with our existing contractors so that we can continue to perform emergency repair work. HCDD's HRP program's mission is to provide emergency repair assistance that addresses an imminent threat to the life, health, and safety hazard of qualified low and moderate income home buyers. HCDD is seeking to align funding sources to ensure that the HRP Master Contractor Agreement has sufficient funding for HRP emergency repair assistance. The cost of repairs will not exceed $20,000 unless the director has authorized an eligible resident's cost waiver. And the next item, an ordinance authorizing the amendment of HCDD's home repair program guidelines and program legal documents, including master contractor agreement and tri-party agreement with respect to HRP Tier 1 emergency repair assistance. So the previous item that I just discussed, this is to amend the guidelines and the master contractor agreement to allow for emergency repairs and maximum project cost increase. The objective of the HRP is to ease life, health, and safety hazards resulting from substandard conditions in the home owned and occupied by low and moderate income home buyers. To better facilitate this goal, this amendment will seek to modify the HRP guidelines, tri-party agreement, and other legal documents as follows. The addition of emergency repair assistance to the HRP Tier 1 assistance section. And emergency repairs are defined as addressing damage or deficiencies to home that pose an imminent threat to the homeowner's life, health, and safety, or protect the property from further structural damage. The cost of repairs will not exceed $20,000.
Okay.
The maximum HRP project cost cap will be increased from the current $200,000 to $250,000 on January 24th, 2018 by Ordinance Number 2018-56. City Council authorized and approved the master contractor agreement for City of Houston Home Repair Program, limiting project cost and grant amounts to $200,000. However, with the base cost of reconstruction routinely approaching and even surpassing the existing $200,000 limit, there has typically not been enough project funding left to address site-specific environmental hazards to the home, such as lead, asbestos remediation, and mold abatement. Emergency repair assistance activities are funded through local tax increment reinvestment zone funds. And just for additional clarity related to the increase from $200,000 cap to $250,000 cap, we have a number of projects in our pipeline right now that has been on hold because the actual construction cost, or sticks and bricks, is within your $200,000 cap. But because those projects require either one of the other, some of them require either homeowners association issues to be addressed, either asbestos needs to be remediated on those projects, and things of that nature that's pushing those costs above your regular $200,000 cap. And so in order to prevent consistent delay in projects being moved forward, the intent is to increase that cap to $250,000, which we anticipate based on average cost for some of your outlier items should be sufficient to cover items that show up, that prevents us from waiting to take a city of council action just to move a project forward, but we can just continue to move it through the pipeline.
Sure.
And that takes it to the end of my items. Opening up questions.
Thank you very much. Good information. We do have one comment or question from Councilmember Cisneros.
Thank you. Yes, that's really good news. I appreciate all this information. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the mayor's support for the increased single-family home development. And that while we truly need a little bit of everything, that I am, very much agreeing with those priorities. I did have a question about in Hardy Yards that that single family means here not what sometimes people think of when they think single family is a separate house, by itself, but that this actually is townhomes and multiplex garden condos. Is that correct?
That is very correct, Councilmember Cisneros. And the whole intent is we're now moving into a space. If you recall from Ashley's presentation earlier, most of our activity has been in the Acres Home area. And now we are starting to branch out into other areas. And right before I answer your question, we actually are moving at least 10 homes in Sunnyside and 12 in Setagast. So we're starting to move into the different other communities, and near Northside is one of them. And as we branch into different communities, we are realizing that the price points aren't the same. Affordability and Councilmember Tiffany, I hate to use that word. I just heard your comment a while ago, but affordability becomes a challenge. And when we move into an area like near Northside, in order to be able to get the best investment and provide best service to our communities, we have to figure out how are we going to be creative, but yet still provide home ownership to individuals. And that's our ability or opportunity to do that by creating some type of mixed-use, single-family affordable home ownership option. And so we still have work to do. We're pretty sure we are trending in the right direction. We've looked at multiple test fits, and we'll finalize it. But it's a combination of all of those that's going to get us to the finish line.
Yeah.
Could you just touch base, please, about eligibility for this one again? Just for the for this people who would maybe come and take advantage of that. Is it a mixed income development? Is there, or is it how will that be?
So we do have at least 3 different options we are considering, and we have not fully finalized, but definitely before we take it to actual city council, that this allows us to continue to move the process forward. We are looking at option where it could either be a combination of market rate Houston Community Land Trust and your different AMI levels 80% and below. We are looking at an option where it could be your market rate and your 80% AMI and below. And I do not think, and Tom, feel free to chime in, I don't think it's fully out of the table as well to consider a community land trust community in itself. And we're still rolling towards what is the best opportunity to provide the housing that's going to meet the needs for the community. But at the end of the day, we have options, and that's a good news.
Okay.
And I think with the right partners and right discussions, we can land where we think will provide the best benefit to the community.
Okay. And just to be clear, I think it's not going to be the same across the city. So I hope you're looking at it area by area, and being tuned in and sensitive to what particular neighborhoods feel is best for them.
That is correct.
Absolutely. And if I could just add on to Anderson's question, Anderson's answer, agree with everything you said, but Councilmember Cisneros, to your specific question about who will be able to take advantage, the main question that we will work through before we issue a developer agreement, or before we make a recommendation on a developer agreement that council will vote on, is similar to the way we do our multifamily developments, identifying exactly what our subsidy is and the income levels of who will qualify. But the other thing that we are very specific on is, given that we have now a home buyer choice option in the CLT, we can put much of that decision-making power in the hands of the home buyers. And if the home buyers decide that it's good for them for a higher level of community land trust participation in a particular area, it's a higher level of subsidy, but we have a way of doing that through that program. And so there may be, and we are looking at maybe putting a minimum on it, but allowing more of those units to go to the CLT if the interest is there from the CLT purchasers. The other thing that I'll just flag, because some people may ask, why would you consider having market rate units here? One, we truly are committed to a mix of incomes across all ranges. If they're very small sites, it may make less sense for us to have market rate because we'll be surrounded by market rate. But on the larger sites, it may be appropriate to bring market rate into the site itself. And that we will never be subsidizing the market rate homes that are selling at $300,000, $350,000. In fact, based upon our models right now, if we were to do that, some of those sales may actually be subsidizing or helping subsidize the lower cost and more affordable homes. So that's the rationale that we're working through. Part of this will be subject to a competitive NOFA, notice of funding availability, similar to what we do with our multifamily deals, where we bring recommendations to you and justify why this particular developer provided the most advantageous option based upon the funding that we're providing.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just add a similar request that I made for public services? So for the TERS funding that y'all are recommending, the acquisition of properties, it says all districts, if we can get an idea of where y'all are anticipating acquiring these properties. One, I think it helps us promote the idea and promote the work around single family development. A lot of the public, they don't realize the city's investment around that. That will be helpful. And then also with C, with the home repair, I would be interested to know the home repair projects happening in District F, right? That type of investment. So if it's possible in the follow-up for us to receive a mapping or some type of high-level list, so just so we can articulate the actual work y'all are doing within throughout the city, that will be helpful. And with that, we don't have any additional questions or comments from anyone in the queue. We're tracking, y'all. It's 11:26. This is great. And I really like Anderson's point around the community land trust community. That would be very innovative for the city to have. Very it'd be trailblazing. So thank you for that. And so,
Councilmember Tiffany, can I add one more thing before I just want to let Councilmember Cisneros know that I heard her comment related to environmental, and I will follow through and provide her specifics. But just want to flag that we have an internal environmental team.
Right.
Related to Ashley's question, Councilmember Cisneros, and every project that comes through our office for review and approval goes through that team to determine whether or not there are any negative environmental impacts related to that property, and is it something that can be remediated and allow the homeowner to move into that home, or do we make a recommendation to find another home because we want to make sure that homeowners are safe? And I can get you this actual specifics as to the process we go through and what is being looked for, but just wanted to flag that I did hear that comment. I made a note of it and I'll follow up.
Thank you. And if you can just broadly, so as this continues to come up, and it is a real issue, and a lot of community groups approach us around these issues, we're able to articulate the city's processes and what y'all actually do. So that can be a part of our language in communicating our housing options. So I appreciate you for that. If you could, we'll share it with the committee if you send it up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muck. Thank you. And so with that, I would like to welcome our Director, Tom McCaslin, for his comments and additional information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just pick up with Anderson's last comment there. And I appreciate his volunteering that. I just want to be, I want to separate a couple of issues out as it relates to the HUD required reviews that we do. That is very specific, and he can provide the details around the inspections and the environmental process that we do, both for the housing quality standards and the environmental review. But I think there was a larger concern, Councilmember Cisneros, that I heard there that I just want to address, because environmental concerns are important and we have to pay attention to them, and it may be appropriate for a city like us to go beyond the HUD requirements, whether it be air quality or water quality or some of the other environmental hazards that are there. That may be appropriate, but it is a conversation that is tricky and is going to require a lot of engagement with the community. And the reason why I say that is environmental concerns can sometimes, I'm not suggesting that they always are, but they can sometimes become backdoor ways for redlining districts that have had disinvestment. And this cannot continue to happen. It has happened in the past and it can't continue to happen. And so as we work through these processes, I don't believe the current guidelines that we follow from HUD do this, but it's worth asking the question. And then as we work through additional issues like air quality, water quality, and other environmental concerns that are identified, we believe the pathway forward is for us to join forces to help remove these from the community, as opposed to us turning our backs on the community. And so I just want you to know that my commitment is to lean in hard in that direction, but never to be redlining a district out and say, we're no longer going to be investing in it. Now the map on multifamily, it's across the entire city.
Right.
And to Madam Chair's comment about our single family investment, it also needs to be across the entire city as well. And so just wanted to flag that for you. The last thing, just to wrap up from the questions, timeline for building homes. We have builders who can build homes in close to 45, 50 days. Sometimes they run into a few issues in terms of getting everything turned on, so that might stretch into 60, 70 days. I will tell you that a home builder who is consistently not getting homes delivered to us in under 90 days will not be building for us for very long. Furthermore, a home builder who is not paying attention to the quality of the work that we want, and we've had a few of those, will not be building for us very long. I've had the conversations directly with builders that we have concerns about. They know who they are, and it is their opportunity to step up. But we will not spend taxpayer money on home builders that can't build on timeline and can't deliver a quality product for our homeowners.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
So I'll move forward with the prepared comments. The first thing I just want to flag for folks is that we have had an ongoing challenge with something that Ms. Allen, Ashley Allen, flagged of having need outstrip supply when it comes to affordable housing. And this is very evident in the home repair program. When I first got to the city, we estimated that we had well over 1,000 homes across the city where people were living in homes that were not fit for human habitation. We've developed a process to roll them forward. Those are our health and safety escalation homes. But we also know that even someone who's not in a home that qualifies for a health and safety escalation still has home repair needs that they need to be able to flag, even if it will take us a while to get to them. And so one of the things that we've implemented is, rather than asking them to apply and go through all of the documentation of bringing together their income and everything else that is required by HUD, we are implementing a survey process so that they can identify their need for home repair. We can flag whether or not they are a health and safety escalation, and if they are, they can roll to the front of the list. And then if they have specific needs, and I'll just flag something that was a priority from a couple of years ago, if they flag that they have repair needs from a leaking roof, we know that while that may not be immediately a health and safety escalation, it's a small dollar repair that will reap significant benefits for preserving that home. And so that home could immediately roll into our small dollar repair program, get the roof replaced, and they can still continue to hold their spot in place for the longer, more substantive rehab that may come later. So as we work through the process, and as Anderson's team works through the pipeline, rather than inviting people in for an application, they'll first do a survey, hold a spot, and then when they're coming up, getting prepared to go into construction, we'll send out the invitation for the application. They have to do it once, and that will prevent us from needing to come back to them multiple times to re-up on those income documents that HUD requires to be done within a particular time frame. So just flagging that for you. Since Anderson, I see your mic is still on. Anything that you wanted to add to this that I've left out?
No, Tom, you've covered it. Sorry, I'll turn my mic off. No, you've covered it. The timeline is 12 months. Within a 12 months, well, no, if it doesn't get to your contract signing, then it has to go back to recertification.
Right. So we know that there are plenty of things that a homeowner can run into throughout that process: tax issues, title issues, all of the standard issues that sometimes airship issues. And so this is a way of streamlining it while continuing to move our process forward. The next item, if we can go to the next slide, is our 2021 multifamily housing priorities. I know that Ray and his team has been meeting with many of you all, and so I'm going to ask that he step in and walk you through the changes proposed for this year. This is still being presented in draft form, but the changes that are being proposed for this year that we'll be making the recommendation to the administration on.
Thank you, Director. Chair Thomas, we've been able to meet with almost all the members of the Housing Committee, but all in total, throughout the last month, our staff met with 9 council members to get their feedback regarding the requirements for getting a resolution of either no opposition or support from the city. So we've taken those comments back, and we're going to be presenting with you today some of the updates we'll be making going into 2021. I'll start off for the first few slides, pretty much reiterating some of the standards that we will continue to move forward. The first set standard you see on the slide today are basically our threshold requirements that any transaction coming to the door must meet a set of criteria that primarily we prohibit deals within the floodway. We frown upon deals in the 100-year floodplain unless there is substantial mitigation from design and other efforts being attributed to the transaction. We discourage new family transactions in high poverty areas unless it's accompanied with a strategic plan to how it's going to benefit the area with a plan. The complete communities plans have been a great example in recent tourist plans as well, been able to find ways of leveraging additional resources for revitalization. And we'll also have the same standards for low performing school areas unless there's evidence that is that any transaction for housing is part of a plan for revitalization to come within an area. So those will be the threshold items we'll continue to adhere to going into 2021. The next slide talks about the items that we prioritize. So there's transactions to get a resolution of no opposition, but transactions for resolution of support is going to require more. And so these are the things that we prioritize and we've done in years past. The revitalization efforts, again, leverage with our Complete Communities initiative and what's going on in the TERS as well. Areas of opportunity with low poverty concentrations in high performing schools, areas experiencing gentrification with high rental costs, but also targeting areas where we have multiple transit options, so transit oriented developments within certain locations within stops. And then overall areas underserved with existing affordable housing right now. So these are all priorities we will continue to promote in the future. I'll just remind the council or the housing committee members, the next slide talks a little bit about a separate resolution that is eligible for these tax credit developers, which is a resolution for that a development meets conditions under a CRA, Concerted Revitalization Area. Often we receive competing transactions within the same CRA. So here's a list of factors that we will review to pick one. And the state rule says you can pick one transaction for each CRA. But some of those same criteria I just spoke about the things we are looking to promote, it is going to be the same criteria that we're going to use to basically pick a winner within any designated area. And then the next slide talks a little bit about the requirements for a 2-mile waiver. Last year, or in 2019, the state legislature granted certain areas within a disaster declaration to receive a 2-mile, to receive a waiver of the 2-mile rule, so to speak. And basically, this is a rule that 2 applications for 9% deals cannot occupy the same 2-mile geography. This allows us to give waivers in certain circumstances, and primarily the 2 main factors that we look at target populations for transactions within competing areas. Also, distinct neighborhoods, if there's ways we can distinguish that these transactions share distinct boundaries in separate neighborhoods. So these are criteria that we'll also use to make decisions, and when we bring to City Council recommendations to approve. So I just wanted to reiterate some of the criteria that you'll be seeing when these come to City Council in February. The next slide talks a bit about some of the major changes, or I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. let me just reiterate. Last year we introduced a policy for equitable distribution. This was an idea that all areas within the city require affordable housing, and we've done some studies to know that there's been areas within the city that have been concentrated with existing affordable housing stock. So within this policy, we have ways to for the most part, limit the amount of transactions we're going to approve within a certain council district by promoting developers to go out into areas that have been underserved. So for this year, council districts A, D, and K, we're going to be capped for the most part of having transactions specifically located within CRAs. And we'll have 2 transactions eligible for those particular districts. The remaining districts will have a maximum allowable amount of resolutions capped to 3. But again, this is a policy we enacted last year. Will continue going in for next year. The next slide talks about some of the major changes that we are looking to see for into 2021. We presented a slew of transactions being financed with DR17 funds. And we've been able to promote high density urban transactions that are, podium built and really emphasize some of the resilience characteristics we've been trying to promote. At this point, we won't have the forecast. We don't forecast having this same amount of subsidy to provide into the transactions going into the next year. So we reduced the emphasis of putting transactions into high cost areas of the city. Not to say that we don't continue to value them, but it's a way and an opportunity to now try to prioritize other areas of the city. For instance, City Council should be reviewing 5 plans for 5 new complete communities. I believe the complete community office will be rolling out in December, is what we're told. So once City Council is able to review and approve these plans, that gives us the ability to support these transactions with the resolutions into new areas for revitalization. We're also going to be prioritizing applications for rehabs and reconstructions, something we haven't prioritized in the past. Primarily, most of the transactions that we see are new construction, and prioritizing rehabs as a way of targeting our existing affordable housing stock and having the reinvestment be targeted to there. And then finally, let me also emphasize a lot of this changes that you're seeing is a result of the feedback that we've received from various council members. One of the main items that we did add is having applicants provide additional factors for several things. First of all is neighborhood beautification efforts. Having factors that prioritize our resilience strategy. So you're going to see, additions of recycling programs, and we're also going to have a myriad of elected not amenities, but design features that applicants can provide that show that they are, they're able to invest in the property for the resilience measure. So some of the things we are promoting, again, we're working with Marissa Aho's office on low-cost design requirements that will promote our resilience strategy going future for all these new deals. Now, we don't want to put a cost burden because we are not investing in these transactions. However, we do think there are very smart and cost-efficient ways that the developers and applicants could provide to their deals to make sure that they are constructing resilient properties for Houston going forward. And then finally, the last slide just gives a visual summary of what our scoring matrix looks like. So to receive a resolution of support, your applicants will be required to meet 10 points out of the outlined scoring criteria that you see there. There are 24 eligible points. Applicants must meet a minimum of 10 to be eligible for a resolution of support from our office. So in summary, that is a quick overview about a program that we're looking, or our application process we're going to be launching in December. And then we're going to give applicants approximately 4 weeks to apply to the city for a resolution. Our office will receive those applications and present our recommendations to City Council, typically late January or early February. And then those will be brought to City Council to vote in mid-February. So that concludes my presentation, Director.
Thank you very, oh, I have a few questions. I don't see any in the queue from my colleagues, but I do have 2 questions. One, is there a particular timeline once they are approved that we are expecting for these doors to open? And do we have a timeline and expectation of development for doors to open for our current round that we're currently in?
Sure, thank you. And so the timeline for the 9% tax credit round, the applications to the state are not due until March the 1st. However, before March the 1st, there is a slew of activity, a little bit of that I've touched on. But the timeline for, until the application period is the city will release applications in December for resolutions of support. Those will be due in our office by early January. And then by mid-January, those will be presented to City Council, or I'm sorry, presented to Housing Committee, and then City Council a couple weeks after that. The actual award of the tax credits will not be done until the end of July. And then when the tax credits are awarded, there's typically up to 1 year the developers need to find investors and lenders and get their deals together. So all in all, there's up to a 24-month, maybe even 30-month gestation period until these transactions are actually brought indoors or open for these deals. So it's about a 2.5
maximum. Are we looking at 30 months maximum?
30 months maximum. There are deadlines required by the U.S. Treasury for placed in service deadlines, but 30 months would be the maximum. Yes, Chair.
Okay, I'm interested in that. And then secondly, I appreciate the additions to the guidelines that we're going to use moving forward. And I mentioned this before with the community support, and what we experienced in February for our special call. We had a lot of community members saying, "Oh, we had no idea about this," right? And it provides pushback to a lot of these projects. I'm interested in seeing once we open up our application process, that one, it allows council members to at least share with developers, community partners that they need to speak with, so we can bypass a lot of that. And so I don't, it's only 1 point, but the community documentation of the point is weighed very heavily, right? And we receive a lot of feedback from community when these 9% are rolled out. And so if there's any way that we can integrate at least a starting point, not to mandate it, but a starting point to initiate with council offices, because super neighborhoods are not the exclusive community organization. HERS are not the exclusive organization, and we can provide them information so they can be successful and have as much information at that time. I would really like to see that so we can bypass any type of miscommunication in the future.
Yeah, that comment's well received, Chair. That we've in the past we're always trying to find ways to promote the communication on first of all the transactions we received and how does that interaction happen with the council members. And I think we've gotten into a better flow of informing council members of the transactions that are coming up. One of the steps we'll be looking to take, though, is working with liaisons within the neighborhood. The Department of Neighborhoods has come up a time or two. They have great relationships with the Super Neighborhood Coalition, so we'd be able to communicate to them, so then they can provide the feedback to the general community as well. So we're going to be working with a number of outlets to make sure that the information is being put out as soon as we get it.
Sure, but what I'm speaking to specifically is that the Super Neighborhood is not the only organization. It's
Right.
not the only apparatus in order to communicate these types of deals. And so if we can have more of and if they reach out to the council office where we're in touch with HOAs that might surround those potential areas or business organizations, it'll close the loop on that. And I think it works to the benefit of the developer and the community when everyone's starting at the same baseline. And so everyone does not attend the Ailey Super Neighborhood meeting. Like some of my super neighborhoods struggle to meet. And so if we are only tasking them with this information, it's going to be lost because all of them are not robust as we would like them to be. So we can just, as a courtesy, make sure that developers are able to meet with council members to introduce themselves, then we can provide them all of the necessary players so they can go do what they need to do. And again, not a mandate, but I think it will assist in the future. And then we have Councilmember Cisneros. A question? You're up next.
Yes, thank you. Well, to your point, about communication and the challenges we have, especially now, one thing that I've done the last couple of years that's really helped in District H that I like to share is, that helps with the flow of information is that as this information is being released and received in December, we have a letter that's prepared that we send out at the very, very beginning of January. Like when we get back on January 4th, it goes out to the communities, reminding everyone that we are entering the affordable housing application season, and that, the timeline is very tight. It's established by the state, and it happens so quickly. It's hard for the community to follow along. So this lays it out. Not everyone's familiar with it. There's people that are new to it completely, and there's some changes every year. But this really does help, to send this letter out to all of our community leaders. It goes on my webpage, and we talk about it, provide links to it in the newsletter. It does help. It's still hard, as you're right, Councilmember Thomas, that, there's so many people that don't go to the meetings, but it does, this is one way that I've found has really helped. It gives facts to others who are also trying to explain, and, be able to go back to something that's credible, because there's a lot of misunderstanding still. It's gotten better. I've seen improvements in understanding the benefits of affordable housing that when I first got here, there was so much more pushback than I see now. So we've come a long way already, but this is something that we do that helps. And then I just wanted to say thank you, Director McCaslin, for your comments about environmental standards. I really appreciate your commitment to not letting environmental concerns become a backdoor to waste to redline communities. That truly was at the very heart of my question and concern. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Absolutely.
And that's all we have in the queue.
Oh. Well, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your commitment to help us communicate. One of the things that we recognize here is, as Councilmember Cisneros said, the timeline is short. We don't control the timeline. That is controlled by the state. Right. But we do believe that the sooner we can be communicating with communities, with organizations, with stakeholders, the better. Ray Miller and his team have had meetings. I think Vice Mayor Pro Tem had meetings in her district in the fall. We'll make them available even before the application process kicks up. And then anywhere that we can be to be having these conversations about what this means, because at the end of the day, it is just about ensuring that folks who live in that community have an affordable home to live in. These are not public housing units, right? An important part of our community, but we don't fund the development of public housing where you have 100% concentrated poverty. Most of our developments at most have about 10% of the units set aside for folks below the poverty line. And then the balance of these developments really are for low income wage workers who are the backbone of our economy in Houston. And so the sooner we can get that message out to the community, I think the better it is, because we do have fair housing obligations here that we take very seriously, and we appreciate your commitment to that.
You're absolutely. Yep.
Just moving on to the next slide, I want to flag that we are still holding our virtual community office hours every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. For those folks who are listening in by phone, they can call 832-394-6912 or 6227 or 6126. That's 832-394, and then the suffixes that I gave, 832-394-6912 is the first one. And then a couple of slides just in terms of recently completed developments. The New Hope Housing Development, Dale Carnegie, had a very small and socially distant ribbon cutting, but you can see the beautiful new development, 170 fully furnished studio apartments with case management and supportive services. The next slide is a picture from inside.
Oh, wow.
So we hope that you're able to visit, but another one of their beautiful developments completed and open for disabled individuals, working poor, elderly, veterans, formerly homeless, and those at risk of homelessness. And then flagging one of the ongoing rehabs, Gale Wind's apartment rehab. This is 18 garden-style affordable rental units in near North Side, working with Avenue CDC as our partner. Something that I just want to reiterate, we almost never do anything as a department by ourselves. We're always working with incredibly strong partners, and we appreciate the partnership of Avenue CDC on this development. And then the next one is an ongoing development, something that was in front of you, the East End Maker Hub. Work is continuing there, as you can see from the next picture. And right now we are projecting March as the time when the certificate of occupancy will be available. This is the Maker Hub in conjunction with TXRX Labs, providing 250,000 square feet of shared collaborative and incubation spaces for startup businesses. And then an additional ongoing work, Town Park Village, something that we've talked about here, master plan community, 62 homes under construction. Many of our home buyers, and I want to circle back to provide a little bit more context on a comment that Ms. Allen mentioned. When we subsidize, we're not providing market rate home ownership. It is always affordable home ownership, and the distinction that she was drawing there was between the community land trust home ownership and homes that receive our $30,000 or approximate, $30,000 or thereabouts assistance for a purchase at a subsidized amount. In these cases, many of the homeowners moving into this, even in the market rate development side, are able to qualify for that $30,000 down payment assistance, because with the Harvey funds, that does go up to 120% area median income. So fantastic development there on the northeast side of and then just a few of our pictures of our home buyer assistance homeowners moving in. There's a homeowner moving into Setagast. You can see the beautiful new interior there and one of our inspectors. And then a homeowner on Corpus Christi Street in Denver Harbor, another beautiful home that they're moving in. So in the last year, over 125 homeowners who've moved in. Here's a picture of our recovery efforts with a tear down at 7 on Fairway Street. Let me just give a quick update, because we've gotten some questions about the transition on the GLO. Right now, subject to the Rule 11 agreement that the mayor announced, we are finishing the work on 419 homes that the GLO has given to us by name and address that we can continue to work on. And transitioning the other, both survey respondents and applications, including the 100 applications that are either approved by the GLO after October 6th, or we're waiting for the GLO for approval. Those 100, as well as the ones that are further in the pipeline, we are working with them collaboratively to transfer over to them based upon the agreement that was reached with them. There has been some confusion, and if you read today's paper, confusion around the reimbursement side.
Yep.
The homeowner there was properly referred over to the GLO because she has ongoing repair needs that under our agreement with the GLO, we cannot move her forward under. And so her repair needs must be met by the GLO. The place where there are concerns around reimbursement is because the GLO currently does not have a reimbursement program. And so when our funds were zeroed out by the GLO, then we no longer have funding available to move forward with reimbursement unless the GLO has approved it. We are looking and doing final analysis on the math calculations right now in terms of outstanding expenses that we must seek reimbursement for in terms of our expenses on this program, plus the 419 homes that the GLO has approved. If there is money left over beyond the $72 million, or within the $72 million that the GLO has approved for this program, they have offered for us to, on an individual home-by-home basis, submit requests to them for us to move forward with those reimbursements. And we will do that as long as we have that availability there. I do want to flag that will be a limited number of reimbursements we can move forward unless there's additional funding provided from the GLO. Right now, that will be the restricting factor, but we are communicating with our folks. Everyone in our program who is not moving forward received an email from us over the weekend. We have the phone numbers for the GLO up on our website, and if folks do have questions about their status, they should give us a call or call the GLO directly. And it is the information with the phone numbers for the GLO is one of the first things if you go to our website online. With that, the rest of the report really is just the updates on the current programs and the numbers of files that are moving forward. So I won't go through this directly, but I'll pause there for questions and otherwise turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Sure, thank you. I'm glad that you raised that the information around the GLO, because as we were meeting, I received another email from a resident concerned about the rehab. So two things. One, because when I read the Chronicle article, the GLO stated that the city can just reimburse, but we don't have those funds in order to do that. So one, that's one. Second, can you provide the housing committee with the high level guidelines of what the agreement is, so we're all clear about what our expectations are, so when we do receive these types of emails with residents who need clarity, we can provide that. I think that will be tremendously helpful as we move forward with the GLO. That's all I have regarding that. You can move forward with the rest of your.
Okay, that's all I have. So I'll turn it back to you.
Oh, wonderful. So we do have a couple of questions from our live Q&A, and this is specifically around the 9% guidelines that Ray had shared earlier. How are projects approved, and are projects with the most points approved over projects with low points?
This is a question from a council member?
No, it's out of our live Q&A for the meeting. So initially the question was, how was the point system developed, and how are projects projected our projects with the most points approved over projects with low points? Does meeting the minimum make the project competitive? So if you can make the connection between our fair housing guidelines and the guidelines from the state of Texas, so then they could probably understand how we come up with that method.
Well, let me just reiterate that, the criteria that we set up doesn't necessarily, we don't necessarily pick winners and losers. What we've decided is this is the criteria for which, if you want a resolution of support from us, you must meet these standards. There is some competitive aspects when it comes to concerted revitalization areas, where we have to make decisions. And so, but it's all based on the same criteria that, that we talked about before regarding our fair, the fair housing standards and what we're trying to promote. But for the most part, this process for the city, it's not a competitive process. All we're doing is just setting out criteria of what applicants need to be eligible for a resolution. And these are criteria that the department has established for years. We'll tweak and update these as we get feedback from council members and the general public. But for the most part, these have been, long-standing criteria that we will continue to promote.
Thank you. Hopefully it answers their question. I have no other questions that are in the queue and none for me. And so this has been a very robust conversation. So thank you so much, all of you, for participating, and my council colleagues and staffers representing different council offices. So there were a few follow-up requests, and so we'll send that back to housing so we can make sure that we're in lockstep and we can turn that, provide those responses to the housing committee. Vice Chair Robinson, are you still with us for a few closing remarks before we adjourn our meeting?
I'm here. I was just wondering, didn't we have some public speakers?
We have public comments. Forgive me.
I think we need to, Chair, I think we need to address those quickly.
No, we do. So first up, we have Sharon Mayberry, President and CEO of Mayberry Homes. Sharon.
Please press *6 to unmute.
Mr. Mayberry? We'll come back if he logs in. Following, we have Ms. Kendra London with the 5th Ward CBA.
Good morning. I'm Kendra London, and I was born and raised in the 5th Ward community, and also the founder of the Circle Coalition. I'm proud to say that the Circle Coalition has collected over 100 signatures that of residents and small business owners who would like to discuss the displacement issues of our community, that we're facing with the Midway East River Project and the I-45 expansion. This is very personal for me because as I began to tell my grandmother how we're being left out of the CBA discussion, she began to share with me how the I-10 expansion took half of her backyard. So we're fighting to have a voice on the CBA because we know it will cause displacement for the historic residents by gentrifying our community that is also a food desert. Midway owns a mile of 5th Ward and seeking $130 million of our public money. The median housing value is really changing. In 2000, it was $28,977, and in 2015, it was $87,797. Meanwhile, the total population has declined from 22,211 to 19,687, while the city population has increased. The Black population declined from 63% to 48%, demonstrating Black people are leaving the historically Black neighborhood. Houston Housing Authority and TxDOT are giving housing vouchers to Clayton Homes and Kelly Village residents. The vouchers will take care of the rent, but not the cost of living. It will actually create a domino effect of burdens, and I'm speaking as an ex-housing voucher recipient. If you want to revitalize our community without displacing us as a people, you should consider to build affordable housing before any of these projects are even put into place. So to build affordable housing that we can afford, and the affordable housing should also accept those vouchers that you all are giving out. So that way we have a choice of staying in our community or leaving. But most families that receive that voucher will leave and go to Atascocita or Humble, and that will create
your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. London. And if I can just respond briefly, the mayor is very clear about the community's request around community benefits agreements, and some of the presentation that we heard from the Community Land Trust and some of our fiscal investments through our votes speak exactly to that. So our hope is that we can move these affordable models to these neighborhoods to preserve housing and then offer different housing solutions I would like to encourage you, if there's some documentation that you would like to share with the Housing Committee, I would be more than willing to share that so everyone is abreast of the work and the effort in the Fifth Ward area regarding the CBA and your housing needs. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And lastly, we have Ms. Molly Cook.
Hello.
Are you ready?
Madam Chair,
Yes. Who's speaking?
I'm sorry. Good morning, Sharon Mayberry. I'll stay in the queue.
Okay, you can go ahead and go next, and then we'll close with Ms. Cook. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Madam Chair, good morning to you, Mr. Vice Chair as well. I'm Sharon Mayberry, President and CEO of Mayberry Homes. I'd like to thank the council members in the Housing and Community Affairs Committee for your time this morning. So it's greatly appreciated. Of the 25 plus years Mayberry Homes has been in the building industry, for 12 of those years, we have been in the building partner with the City of Houston LAURA program, now known as the Houston Land Bank. We have had a very productive and fruitful working relationship with the Land Bank and are grateful for the opportunity to nurture and continue our partnership. In light of the COVID-19, we along with other builders have had to drastically adjust to increase in materials due to the shortage of materials, specifically in the lumber package. For example, the overage of Homes lumber package that now today is about 15,000. It was previously, about 15,000. That's now today over 30,000. Therefore, our initially submitted performance to HLB now places us in a position where we stand to be in the red or only break even. We have presented the same findings along with supporting invoices and documents to the Land Bank. We have also shared prospective solutions to raise the maximum sales price for new construction from $212 to $228 to be in line with HUD's calculation for the maximum new construction sales price as identified for Harris County. The current maximum sales price of
What are we
$212
going to do?
has been in place since 2015, and has not been the minimum inflation increase as assessed by HUD annually. We're requesting the same of the committee on today to being that time is of essence, and that we are in the final stages of construction and near completion, on 4 of the properties, 2 on Amboy and the other 2 on Salinas, that are required. They're required for lumber in compliance with the Chapter 19 ordinance. So in other words, what's happened with the Chapter 19 ordinance, we've been required to take and elevate these homes in the flood zone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayberry, for your comment.
You're right. Lastly, thank you for your consideration.
We do have Vice Chair Robinson. You're in the queue.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take a second to thank my friend Sharon for being here and for being a quality builder in the city. But, I think what you're appealing to here, I think is going to require a little extra time on the side. So I encourage you to give me a call at my office here, Sharon, so we can set up a time to discuss what you might think is the appropriate cost basis and see if we can figure out the right forum for that discussion.
Right. So great, Councilmember. So I'd like to maybe suggest that if I can get on your schedule perhaps this week.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. 832-393-3013. Give me a call in my office. Yeah, 832-393-3013. That's my office here. 3013. Thank you.
Okay, great. So yeah, and specifically, just to kind of go over some of the things that we've already provided for HLB.
Your time has expired, and we have another speaker. So
thank you. Thank you.
We'll follow up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you much. And in closing with our public comments, we have Ms. Molly Cook. Are you still with us?
Please press *6 to unmute.
Ms. Cook?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, Chair, members of the Housing and Community Affairs Committee. My name is Molly Cook. I'm a public health nurse resident of District C, and I'm speaking to you as a supporter of the Circle Coalition. I can tell from all of your remarks throughout this meeting that this is a group that values the community, believes that they deserve a voice, and wants to make it possible for people to afford their own homes in their own neighborhoods. I support the development of a fair community benefits agreement between Midway and the residents of Fifth Ward. as you said, Madam Chair, the TERS board isn't the community. The community isn't being engaged, and the entire process feels predatory. Whether it's a multi-billion-dollar freeway or a development, there's not a primary aim to lift up the neighborhoods that have historically suffered from the burdens of our historical racist decisions. Despite the obvious support for communities on this committee, old patterns are repeating. And the community members are not asking for anything extreme. What they want is jobs, housing, and investment in their community. They want Midway to be a good steward of the neighborhood and approach it with humility and deference. There is life there that this development will disturb, but change can be distributed to the people that already live there in a way that locals and tourists can enjoy. So we're asking you to use your position and your power to allow for economic prosperity that's shared among those who already live there. This ward's between a rock and a hard place with this development and the expansion, and the residents deserve the respect of anyone who wants to come in and alter their home. So we ask that you do what you can to stop gentrification and lift up the community to protect Houston's history and diversity in Fifth Ward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. It's now 12:15, and I do want to point out for you, Vice Mayor Martha Castix Tatum is chair of the Economic Development Committee, and I think this is something that she would be very interested in exploring as well. So I appreciate you for your public comments. It is 12:16 according to my clock. I want to thank you all for a very robust and productive meeting. As I stated earlier, we do have some follow-up that will provide the committee and the staff members that were able to join. Vice Chair Robinson, do you have any closing remarks before I adjourn our meeting?
No, ma'am. Thank you. It was a very substantive discussion. Have a great day.
Thank you much. Let me find my notes. Before we adjourn, I would like to remind everyone that our next HCA meeting will be held on December 15th. My office will be sending out additional information. Again, thank everyone for being here, spending the time. No other questions or comments. This meeting is officially adjourned.